Interning for your doctrine is hard enough. Life has a way of pulling at you from every direction. But sometimes it isn't life that's doing the pulling. You don't notice the first thing because it doesn't feel important. It feels like your eyes are adjusting, or a noise that you didn't fully hear. The apartment wasn't old, no history, no stories. Sometimes an apartment doesn't feel haunted because it's old or creepy looking, but because of what's layered in place around it. Morgantown is that kind of town where history sits right under everyday life. A college city built over centuries of people passing through, settling in, suffering, celebrating, and dying. WVU alone has legends that never went away, like the Woodburn Hall clock tower story where students supposedly trapped a cow in the tower long ago, and people later swore they still could hear the ghostly sounds near the building. In downtown, even the library has its own dark lore, with stories of a man who died during renovations and is said to still linger near the elevator area. Add the Monongahela River running through everything, a river tied to old industry, accidents, and long-running local monster stories, and you've got the perfect ingredients for a space to feel charged. So when an apartment starts creaking, whispering, or shifting in ways that don't make sense, the fear isn't just something's in here. It's the realization that in Morgantown, you might be living on top of a past that's never completely moved on. I'm Van Holsing, and you're listening to Life, the Universe, and Everything in Between. Shortly after my friend moved into the apartment, she started taking pictures because she was thinking she saw movement. Not clearly, just enough to make her look twice. One picture appeared to show something standing there, a shape, hair, a person where no one should have been. She sent it to her husband and friends, and they saw it too. This was a moment when you realize that's not supposed to be there. It's moments like these where you just need confirmation that you're not going crazy. But things didn't happen all the time, and as time passed, life went back to normal. It wasn't until she got home from work one day and was about to give herself a pedicure. She placed the battery-powered tool on the table and stepped out of the room for a moment. That's when she heard it, the buzzing. She looked back into the room and saw the machine had turned itself on. It was vibrating, moving across the table on its own. It started to turn itself on and off with no apparent explanation. She stood there watching it longer than she wanted to. She told herself it had to be faulty. She told herself it was nothing. So she turned it off and went about her day. Once again, time passed and life seemed normal again. It was just another night. She was getting ready for bed. Nothing unusual. No reason to expect anything. When she walked into the bedroom, the lamp had begun to flicker. It started turning on and off. She stood there watching it, trying to make sense of it. It wasn't dimming. It wasn't fading. It was flickering. Violently. So she took out her phone to record it because she wanted more proof that something was happening. She said it reminded her of Stranger Things when all the lights went haywire in the show. She said not long after there had been other incidences where it sounded like someone was coming in the door, but when she would go and open the door and look around, there was nobody there, and the door was locked. She started to think it was just her imagination, but as we continue this story, I'm starting to suspect it's anything but that. You see, she had a laundry room that was off the kitchen and had its own door. One night, she was in the laundry room, switching her clothes over from the washer to the dryer. The door to the room was only open a crack, just enough space to move around while she worked. As she lifted the damp clothes and began placing them in the dryer, it happened. The door violently slammed in with a violent force, crashing into her and the dryer door she had just propped open. The impact was so forceful, she froze. Her whole body began to tremble in fear. For a moment, she was sure somebody else was in the house. The room felt smaller, the air felt heavier, and in that instant, she no longer felt safe. All she wanted was to leave and go home. She picked up her phone and called her husband. She told him that she wasn't okay, that something had just happened and she wanted out of the apartment. He tried to explain it, maybe the wind, maybe the furnace kicking on. She listened, but it didn't fit because of all the other things on her own. Maybe you can explain away a noise, a light, an object moving, but this was different. This was a force. She hadn't been drinking, she wasn't tired, and it was right after work. She was convinced that whatever did it on purpose. She joked about it later, called it the spookable because joking made it easier to live there. And shortly before she ended up leaving the apartment, she had one more strange event. Her phone had disappeared overnight. She looked for it before going to bed, checked the couch cushions, the kitchen, the bedroom, anywhere she could think. She needed it for the alarm in the morning, but she couldn't find it anywhere. Eventually, she gave up and went to sleep. In the morning, the alarm went off. Not beside her bed, not in her bedroom. The sound was coming from the living room. She followed it across the apartment, listening carefully, trying to figure out where it was coming from. The alarm had led her to the corner of the room. Her phone was inside the flower pot. It was sitting in the soil of the snake plant she hadn't touched. She didn't know how it had gotten there, but at least the alarm still worked. Some places don't announce themselves. They don't threaten. They don't chase you out. They wait. They interrupt your life quietly until ignoring them stops working. Thanks for listening to Life, the Universe, and Everything in Between. If you like this podcast, consider subscribing on wherever you get your podcast. If you've experienced something you can't explain, something that lingered, something that followed you home, I'd like to hear it. Or if you just want to say hi, that's okay too. You can share your story at theinbetweenpod.com. And until next time, keep your eyes open for what lies in the in-between.